John William Cooper was born in Milford Haven, Wales. He was one of 7 children. His father worked as an agricultural labourer, and soon John Cooper himself would work the fields as a local farmhand.
He was part of the post-war baby boom generation. He left school at 15, he got involved in a range of different trades, which wasn't anything particularly unusual. So he appeared to have a fairly regular upbringing. There aren't any really obvious signs of the trauma, the abuse, or the neglect that we see in cases of serial killers.
He left home at 15. One of the reasons why he was able to leave is because he was a fairly talented guy around the farm, in a rural environment. He could do a lot of things, so he could get by. And he was a very independent person. Most children wouldn't leave then because they'd be afraid to. He wasn't afraid because he was a man, he could take care of himself.
He was quite well known in the local farming community, you know, making his way in the world.
Soon, the wayward Cooper settled down to family life. He married his childhood sweetheart at the age of 21, and before long they welcomed a son and a daughter into the world.
From the outside, Cooper did appear to be a regular family guy. They had 2 children, so looking in, they looked to be the ideal nuclear family. Cooper presented quite a respectable veneer to the outside world.
But the married man Cooper liked to indulge outside of the family home.
He did quite enjoy the high life. He liked going out and drinking and gambling, and he was gregarious. The people that knew him socially thought he was a stand-up guy, but actually he had a very short fuse. He would lose his temper very easily. So here's somebody who's crafting this performance of self, which isn't the real him.
He was quite well known in the local community, quite well liked, known to have a violent temper, but nevertheless, you know, one of the boys, so to speak, in the local pub.
In 1978, at the age of 34, Cooper found work with the multi-million-dollar oil giant Gulf, working as a welder's mate at the local refinery. That same year, Cooper himself struck it rich, winning a newspaper competition, Spot the Ball.
He won £90,000, a fortune. In today's terms, it would probably £500,000, as well as a £4,000 Austin princess. If he had been a more temperate man, he would probably have saved some of that money.
But after giving £1,000 each to 10 of his family members, the generosity seemed to stop there. Cooper, the gambler, started burning a hole through his lucky winnings.
This is a life-changing amount of money, but he didn't hold on to it for very long. I think because he did live that fast and high lifestyle, he continued to gamble, he continued to drink, he invested in fairly misplaced business ventures. So he was soon parted from that money. But once that money was gone, it didn't get rid of that sense of entitlement, that sense in which I want to have these things that I was able to buy before.
There's a hypomanic quality to it. He looks to me like he probably was what some people call a cyclothymic personality or manic depressive illness. And in his moments of euphoria, he gambles, he thinks he can do anything, and all of a sudden he looks down and his money's gone.
The seemingly happy-go-lucky John Cooper was in fact deeply troubled beneath the surface. His teenage son particularly bore the brunt of Cooper's rage. Not only was he subjected to beatings, at one stage he even claimed his father placed a shotgun into his mouth and threatened to kill him.
He contrived to be a violent and aggressive man. It drove the son out of the house. He couldn't bear his father.
Despite his son escaping the home at just 16, Cooper had to keep up the appearance of a happy family, enjoying their newfound wealth that he'd secretly squandered. With no sign of getting caught during his 2-year crime spree around rural Pembrokeshire, Cooper thought he was on a winning streak. On the night of the 22nd of December 1985, he racked the stakes up even higher. His next target was barely a mile from his own doorstep, Scoverston Manor in Stainton.
Now, they are local farmers, they're quite wealthy, and Cooper is known to them, so this is quite a close-knit community.
They're a rich and reclusive pair called Richard and Helen Thomas. They lived in a 3-storey farmhouse set in considerable acres, not more than a mile from where Cooper actually lived. Cooper got there thinking that Helen would be on her own, burst in, threatened her with the shotgun.
But unbeknownst to Cooper, Helen's brother Richard was close by.
Unexpectedly, Richard returned, almost without thinking. Cooper turns his shotgun on Richard and kills him. He ties up Helen and shoots her in the face, killing her.
The siblings were both shot at close range in the head, but brother Richard was also wounded in the stomach.
A close-range discharge with a shotgun will almost completely destroy the head. If Richard was shot in the stomach first, he'd be well aware of what had happened to him. For Richard, we can only hope that the shot to the head was first and that he was dead from that. I strongly suspect that the first shot was the one to the abdomen. When it didn't kill him, then there's the fatal shot to the head. The whole situation must have been utterly terrifying.
It was a dastardly, brutal crime in pursuit, of course, of Cooper's lifestyle. But he then sets fire to the house in an effort to conceal the crime.
So not only has he invaded their privacy and their space, not only has he taken their things, not only has he taken their lives, he's decided that he's going to burn the place to the ground. Cooper committed these crimes in his own backyard, and I think this high-risk offending, he didn't really care, I think, or didn't really think very much far ahead. He would see an opportunity and he would take it. He would live very much in the present moment, not really giving very much thought to what was going to happen afterwards.
Police had heard about Cooper's fondness for the limelight, and in February 2009, a copy of the episode that he appeared on was traced back to ITV's archive in Leeds. They compared it to a sketch of a suspect seen using Peter Dixon's bank card, wearing similar shorts to the ones found in Cooper's home.
When they looked at the video and then compared that video to the artist's impression of the man who might have attacked the Dixons, the two were almost identical. I think the superintendent said it was as if you could trace one over the other. It was almost a perfect match. So now we begin to have the net closing around Cooper.
Now Cooper was back out on the streets, having served 10 years of his 16-year sentence for armed robbery and burglary. But time was running out for the killer.
More and more details being heaped on top of what the police are coming to believe is an absolutely airtight case against Cooper. In May, barely months after he's got out of jail, Cooper is rearrested.
The police even filmed the moment they pounced on Cooper as he went to collect his morning paper, satisfied they'd put this dangerous killer back in prison.
He continues to deny everything. But the forensic evidence is beginning to become overwhelming.
During questioning, Cooper admitted owning the shorts that had the key evidence against him, Peter Dixon's blood. Further forensic tests on the clothing had thrown up something even more interesting.
The hem had actually been taken up, so they took the hem down and they found another piece of DNA evidence. Now, this DNA belonged to the daughter of Peter and Gwenda Dixon, so this proved fairly conclusively that these shorts belonged to Peter Dixon.
Police believe these were stolen from Peter's rucksack just before Cooper fled the murder scene. Cooper was finally brought to Swansea Crown Court on the 22nd of March 2011 to face justice. As well as the expert witnesses lined up to prove the case against him, His own son also took to the stand, unmasking the dark, violent side of the lovable rogue. He revealed his habitual nighttime walks, stalking the local Pembrokeshire countryside, armed and dangerous.
He denied everything. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. And for weeks sustained precisely that stance. But that did not convince the jury. The forensic evidence proved decisive, as did the Bullseye videotape.
When Cooper returned for sentencing on the 26th of May, he continued to protest his innocence.
You must judge me after the trial, not before.
Judge John Griffith Williams gave him 4 life sentences and told him the murders were of such evil wickedness that the mandatory sentence of life will mean just that. For Angela Gallop and her team, it had been a triumph for their painstaking forensics work.
It was a really satisfying case. I think he's an extremely dangerous man. I think he's just one of the most dangerous criminals that I've come across in my time in doing forensic science.